Morning. Hey guys, it's Liberty Tree. I'm Lindsay. This is Yo.
Welcome to another episode.
So this morning I saw an interview on Fox News, fake news if you're liberal, by Barbara Corcoran. I don't know how to say her name. She's a 75-year-old woman. Her net worth is $1 million.
Corcoran.
Corcoran? I don't know. Cockroach? What is it?
Cucaracha?
Cucaracha. That's
Barbara
what
Cucaracha.
That's what I'd call her. Won't die. Comes out like a little pest. That's what I'd call her. Lives in Manhattan. She's 75 years old. She's from New Jersey. She's born in 1949. And if you consider the time period of 1949, they came out of the Great Depression. Things were
Rip-roaring.
That's like the peak of the peak.
That's the best. All the baby boomers coming home.
No, they're not the baby boomers. That's the GIs
sorry. All the GIs coming home, making baby boomers.
It's
a great time.
I'm not saying the boomers didn't have a hard time in the 70s, but on average, wages kept up with inflation versus what we're living through now. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. So again, I'm a little biased, and it's not even just a bias. There's actual data. We can link the gentleman who breaks it all down from what the boomers had versus us. I forget his name, but he does a fantastic job. And just listening to this interview on Fox News with her, I just made my blood boil because I'm like, you're so biased. And they talk about people now living in echo chambers. And I think even if it's not social media, I think people live in echo chambers in especially older, wealthy folks. They live in their little wealthy communities. And so they only get feedback from their wealthy communities. I think that's why so many people like Trump is because he'll go ask the freaking gardener, hey, what do you think?
Right.
This lady's not going to go ask the gardener.
Right.
She's going to go ask her other rich white lady friends.
Right.
With their little haircut.
Right.
What do you think?
Right.
And then she's going to go, people are confused. No, nobody's confused. You're confused.
There's a little snippet. Just jump in.
Yeah.
I'll show you a snippet.
There you go.
So how do you view the environment right now for lending?
Well, I think what we're losing right now, we desperately need is more first-time buyers. Less than 24% of the people buying now are first-time buyers at an all-time low. So rates have been bouncing around a while now, 6 to 7%. So people are confused. They don't have big expectations. They're no longer waiting for a tremendous rate drop. If that happens, God, it would be incredible for the market.
Okay.
All right.
So you're kind of getting the gist of this freaking lady, right? She's got her opinions.
Yeah.
So
I think personally she's projecting a little bit. She's confused.
I
think she's a little confused.
And I think because in her communities, it's things are good. Well, yeah, you own assets. You've only seen good times. I would say mostly only seen good times.
Manhattan's one of the arguably most coveted real estate areas in America.
It must be like Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco in her little bubble and thinking, oh yeah, it's great. Everything's great. And I'm like.
So she's confused. Why are first time home buyers so
She says
absentee?
all-time low. She says it's historic all-time low. All-time.
Not to mention they are the oldest first time home buyers they've ever
seen.
Mid to early 30s.
And she's like, it's because interest rates. And I'm reading the comments and I'm like, well, they feel what I feel.
Sure.
Do you think it's because of the interest rates?
If you're watching this video, you're probably keeping an eye on your local market. What do you think about it? Put a comment in the comment section, please. I would love to hear what you think. Do you agree with her? Do you not?
I mean, most of us, it's so easy to pop on Zillow now and go, well, okay, yeah, the mortgage payment is probably 3 times what my rent is. That's starters.
Or 2.5.
2.5. Some of them is 4, depending where you live. Where we live, if we were to buy in the exact neighborhood that we're renting in, at least 3 times.
Yeah.
For these homes.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
And some areas it's probably closer and some it's probably further away. But what's crazy to me is she's going to say it's interest rates. And I'm like, no, because she's talking about 45-year-olds. Oh, they couldn't buy because interest rates. So I'm like, well, when they were 45 years ago, pre-COVID, they still couldn't buy.
Right.
I don't think that has to do with interest rates because interest rates were 3 or 4% back then. They were sitting there.
Right. I was on the phone with my dad, who's a realtor, and he gave the argument, oh, real estate's up 4% year over. Take a look at this chart. Year over data. That doesn't look up to me.
I'm going to stair-stepping down if you ask me.
Another thing, Lindsay, we need to talk about elephant in the room. These DSCR loans.
Okay, well, we have to talk. So the gentleman interviewing her goes, well, some people say it's a bubble.
Right.
Her face goes a little sour. Here, you could look at her.
Check this out.
So some talk about a bubble in some of those hot markets, particularly in Florida. Now, do you see a bubble? I read a lot of that press, and they say, yeah, it's out there. But I don't see the devil may care flipping of properties, anything like that accompanied the last bubble. What do you say?
No, this is nothing like the last bubble. Right now, only 3% of the buyers in the marketplace are investors. That's what creates a bubble big time when you get a lot of investors. No, these are home users. They live in their spaces, whether it be their first, second, or third home. No, I don't see a bubble at all. I expect.
So she gets a little sour. No, there's nothing that's in a bubble. Bubbles normally have a ton of investors. Well, she goes, all-time lower, first-time home buyers, all-time high, all cash buyers. And I'm like, yeah, I think all cash buyers are definitely just buying it as their second home, as a vacation home. And I'm like, no, they're also fucking investors because they're worried about fucking a blow-off top in the stock market. They're worried about they're parking their money.
And listen to Michael Bordenaro, listen to Reventure Capitalist, Nick, and they talk about these institutional investors that are actually not a large part of this investor gobble up period. It's actually these mom and pop investors. These small, this is our third home, fourth home.
For an Airbnb.
Yeah, for your vacationing? I don't think so.
No, they're vacationing in the Bahamas.
So. Absolutely.
They're not actually vacationing. They're renting out as an Airbnb, and then they maybe go once every 5 years.
Right.
Like, stop.
The data is there. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And so we had some personal experience with this. Now we've lived in California, Texas, and Ohio. Okay, so we've lived in multiple states, and this lady goes, oh, there's not a ton of investors. There's not a ton of flippers, is what she says. And I'm like, I don't know where in Manhattan you live. Probably there is no flippers because no flipper can get in the freaking market there. But I don't know how to tell you this, but any normal market that was like for middle class people or even low income people, there's flippers out your ass. Most recently, we had a flipped home across the street from where we live, and there was a fucking squatter in it.
Yeah, the police showed up 2 weeks ago. Like 5 police showed up to get this guy. They busted down the door. Love that for the homeowner. Get to fix that. And they had to pull this guy out.
And I'm like, not to mention when we were in Texas, it's like the amount of flipped homes. I mean, we were contractors in Texas. We'd get people who do it, and we most of the time would not work for them because they wanted cheapest so they could increase their margins. So most of the time they would not hire us. But you cannot tell me there's not flippers everywhere. And then, as you mentioned, this elephant in the room, this what is it called?
DSCR loans.
DSCR loans. Can you want to explain what it is a little bit?
Well, okay, so here, I'm going to pull this up for everybody. DSCR loans essentially stand for Debt Service Coverage Ratio Loan. So the meat and the potatoes of it is that if you have a property you're interested in, you'll go to the bank and you'll say, hey, look, I can get X amount in rent to cover my mortgage payment. I'll put X amount down. I'll rent out, this side unit, or I'll, subdivide it, or I'll just rent individual rooms. And then it'll make up for this amount in rent, and then I'll be able to cover my principal and my, interest and my, PMI, XYZ. And so these were very popular during COVID, and they have just grown exponentially. People talk. Mm-hmm. My brother did it. And so what it does is now you can piggyback onto your next unit. So you essentially don't jump into any of your buying power. These are all hypotheticals. It's very risky. In my opinion, this is a ninja.
This is ninja
adjacent.
I'm like,
it has nothing to do with your personals at the end of the day. This is hypothetical.
It's business ninja.
Yeah, you are loaning ahead of any actual situation. That's very risk on.
Yeah.
So sorry.
So during COVID, so from the year 2018 to 2023, DSCR loans were 50% of all non-qualified mortgages. Okay, so but non-qualified mortgages are actually only 5% of the market. So it may not seem like a big deal.
So general 2.5% of
the market.
The entire market. Okay.
But the crazy thing is that these have doubled. Essentially, the part that showed up, this new DSCR loan, has doubled from 20, they said, what did they say? 20, or in 2023, they doubled. So it's like the rate at which that section of these non-qualified loans is growing is like exponential, if you think about that.
So we're looking at maybe 5% now. If it was 2.5, it's doubled.
It says the data's not released yet, so I don't know.
Of course not.
Also, how much of this is being truthful, I don't know.
Right.
The data at this point, that's the sad thing, is like what data is real. They always adjust it after the fact.
Right.
It could be worse, it could be better.
Right.
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, the data's it's unreliable at this point, which is really sad. So you're only getting you can only look at it as much as you can look at the data, but you can look at trends, right? Like the momentum of it is that is trending forward. Well, I've heard videos from Nick or Michael where they've talked about, if the market were to flood 2.5% of homes, say all of this DSCR loans, which they're like, oh, I'm gonna rent it for an Airbnb or I'm gonna rent it for this. Well, an Airbnb, you were banking on making, I don't know, $4,000 a month. Well, now nobody's visiting because layoffs and the economy has slowed. Okay, so now you're like, I'm going to do a long-term rental. How do I know this is happening? Because we literally rented an Airbnb from somebody who converted it from travel nurses into, oh, we're going to rent it out now. They're like, oh, we're minimum only going to rent it for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
They're trying to get into long-term rental without fully long-term rental. They're stepping into it.
Because the benefit is, I guess, you don't reduce your rate on it, so you can keep it at a premium, and it's not a year over, and it's not as much work, right?
So, from my understanding, more of these people that are getting more into traditional rentals, your year rentals. So they're stepping into it. But the thing is, from when we rented it, I think we rented it, and this is stupid expensive, but it was I think $1,900. No, it was more than that. It was $2,500 for a month, which was stupid, but we were just trying to get our feet.
We tried to negotiate $22 to stay there an extra month.
And they wouldn't budge. But now that same property is listed this year at $1,400 a month. Now, we were doing it month to month, and they're now doing it for I think it's 4 or 5 months. I looked on Airbnb.
Okay.
So again, you have to sign more, but we asked about doing a whole year, and they wouldn't budge. So this is, and that's just one example, but is in real time. We have our hand on the pulse of this thing. That is what's happening. So that's they're using these loans to do this, right? Because you're like, well, and I asked, what does he do? Oh, he's a professional paintballer. Oh yeah, that's paying the bills. I'm sure of it. I'm done. Anyways, so you have these loans, but I remember Nick and Michael mentioning say I think it was Nick that mentioned if 1% of all mortgages just all flood in the market, you'd have a crash because inventory would just balloon. Imagine if these slowly start to come onto the market, what that's going to do. Well, freaking Barbara herself goes, oh, inventory, they have 25% more choices. Read between the lines. That means 25% more inventory. That's huge. Should be supply and demand. But she goes, oh, first-time home buyers are not in the market. Well, who is it then? The guy goes, who is it? She goes, well, it's not first-time home buyers. It's not investors. And I'm like, well, if they're buying all cash, most all cash.
Here, listen for yourself. Here's a clip.
Who's buying? We're told that the young people in particular are getting older and older and older when it comes to buying. Either they can't afford to or they're waiting to get their careers going. But the average age of buyers is now creeped up into, first-time buyers is now creeped up into the early to mid-30s. What do you think of that?
I think it locks so many people out of the market. What is more disturbing to me is the number of first-time buyers are now at 24%, the lowest in history. And the number of old cash buyers is at the highest in history. It's at 27%. And the average age of the individual buying their first-time home now, it doesn't look like a first-time buyer. They're, as you said, they're 35, many are 45. And that's the first chance they have to buy a home. It's mostly because of the interest rates.
So to me, I'm like, lady, first-time homebuyers, not in it. You're saying it's not investors, but they're buying with cash.
It's nothing like the last bubble. Right now, only 3% of the buyers in the marketplace are investors. That's what creates a bubble big time when you get a lot of investors. No, these are home users. They live in their spaces, whether it be their first, second, or third home. No, I don't see a bubble at all.
You can look up the dictionary definition of investor right here. An investor is somebody who just wants returns on it. Name a home buyer today that you know that doesn't want equity returns.
Right.
I don't know somebody who's like, you know what, it's okay if I lose money. I'm buying that house for my family.
Look, I'm not saying there's none, exist.
But I have yet to meet one, is what my point is.
It's rare.
It's rare.
Usually
but she's saying they're not investors.
Right. Usually those are
It's
for
inverted.
like one-of-a-kind historic homes.
Sure. And you're like, I don't
maybe it's
fucking
in
care.
a coveted neighborhood that
Yeah.
you love or grew up in. It's not normal.
But her point is, that's not who's buying. I'm like, that's everybody who's buying. For them, I'm like, you have it actually inverted. The one who's buying it as not an investment is actually far and few between, instead of the main person. And it may not be huge amounts of BlackRock buying, but you've got a ton of these tiny mom and pops. She goes, oh, they bring their second or third home. And I'm like, or their 5th to 15th home, because they're investors.
It just reminds me of the type of person that's at this Sunday open house that is just trying to convince you that this thing is worth it and you're stupid for sitting out, and we could be seeing even more appreciation.
Well, but the thing is, I'm like, in the world, so you've said to me she's lying, right? Like, you think she's full of shit.
Yeah, I think she doesn't want to look at the actuality of the data.
I actually disagree. I don't think that she's full of shit. After meeting somebody that is her age, her demographic, and lives in her world, I would have agreed with you previously, but now knowing somebody like this, I think they are genuinely so detached from reality, that they live in their own world, that they don't believe you, that their world is so real. Like, my real world is real, that I don't believe her. Well, I know that I live in an apartment, I work a regular job, I'm not a multimillionaire, and if you look at a multimillionaire, she's in the top whatever percentage. I'm not.
Right.
So I'm in the majority, which means my reality is more the reality than her reality.
Sure. I mean, even the Fox host sounds so disingenuous.
Dude, he's
like,
irritated by her.
I don't necessarily...
Well, she says, oh, if interest rates drop to 5%, it's going to go berserk. And he goes, well, I don't know, because if it's 5%, that normally is a downturn. And her face is like, and why do you know that?
Right.
Like, it's like
Here,
sour
see
again.
yourself right here.
Waiting for that 5% number, anything with a 5%, and you're going to be moving, Neil, and I'm going to be selling your house.
Yeah, 5%, that's a long way to go, and it could happen, but normally you'd associate that with a weaker economy or whatever, so it could still happen, but I cannot see it so soon. But
This lady, it's just crazy to me, because I don't think she's being disingenuous. I genuinely think this is her reality. Is she really does believe the thing she's peddling.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's peddling lies. I think she lives in an alternate reality.
Here's the last part I wanted to show you guys.
Now that the houses are staying on the market hardly long enough for people to buy them. And a number I always watch is what percentage of the houses are going to overbid. And a year ago, it was 25% of the houses went to overbid. Right now, it's still at 22%. So you might say, well, that's not so good and the bubble is breaking, but I don't see that at all.
Okay, so she's talking about, you heard it from the horse's mouth right here. We're going on record. I don't see a bubble at all. And houses are staying on the market hardly long enough for people to buy them. And I've been noticing this trend as well, where some of the houses I've either favorited that I know are overpriced, I'm just curious to see how they go, experience 1 or 2 price reductions, and then they remove them after a month or two. They just
didn't sell. They just take them down. Because, and we know they didn't sell because a few months later they show back up.
Exactly. And like, I'll be curious about this investor property and when they decide to relist it. It's just sitting there. Are you seeing that in your neighborhood? Are you seeing that in some of the markets you're looking at?
And I understand, like, to Nick's point, Reventure Consulting, he talks about how things are hyper-local. Like, if you look even in Ohio, like, probably Cincinnati versus Columbus versus Cleveland versus, what's the other one? Toledo. They are going to be all very different. Not to mention within them, there's neighborhoods. Like, some are going to be depreciating faster and some are going to be still going up because they're high in demand. Now, in Texas, you've got Austin and Dallas,
Houston.
and within Austin, you've got, like, if you were down by the Green Belt versus if you're on the east side, like, there's desirable and less desirable areas. And if you're looking at them, yeah, sure, there's going to be areas that are going to come down faster and other ones that are going to stay up longer.
There's going to be areas that just get gobbled up.
Sure.
Real quick.
But I think the point is, she's just blanket stating this.
Yeah.
And she's not even acknowledging the hyper local portion of this.
Of her argument. Right?
And what I would say is, there are certain areas, probably like where she lives in Manhattan, that are getting gobbled up as quickly as they show up.
Sure.
But anywhere around that area that's maybe 30, 45 minutes outside of the city, are maybe seeing price declines. She don't look at that because she don't live in that world. She probably flies in on her private jet and she flies out from Manhattan to San Francisco to here to there. And in her world, it is going up.
No, she looks at the Midwest and it's like, oh, she's got all of this panoramic data. And then she wants to highlight the Midwest. Oh, 7% increase.
And I'm like, why is the
there's so much juice? Like it's
something to squeeze.
Like when was
something to squeeze?
Something to squeeze. When was a home supposed to be like a home was just supposed to have? No wonder we're not having kids.
Well, here's what's
like that's part of it.
She's talking about people are. Well, no wonder we're in a population.
Yeah.
You're over here looking for places to squeeze.
Yes.
Like the juice.
Exactly.
And it's crazy because I'm like,
most of us are sitting here depressed going, when the fuck are we going to be able to start a family?
And she's here, 75,
Some are.
geriatric, best of best,
most are
top
not.
of top.
Yeah.
And she's like, where can I squeeze?
Yeah.
And you know what this brings me back to? We had a client.
If it doesn't piss you off, it fucking should. And if you
I'm
are
gonna tell a
hoping to
story
be
about
a
Gary.
grandma, if you're hoping to be an uncle, and aunt, you're hoping to be a parent, this is a major reason why.
Can I tell the story about
Sorry,
Gary?
please go
Okay.
ahead. Please go ahead.
Get ready for what
I'm
here?
very upset, but yeah.
We had a client when we worked in Austin, Texas, and we were contractors. And we talked about wanting to leave and go to Ohio because cost of living. We moved from California to Texas to Ohio.
We wanted to escape the hype.
We wanted to escape the hype, but we also wanted to escape the cost of living crisis that seems to fucking follow us everywhere. And I'm not trying to be narcissistic. It's just like everywhere you go, which I think is just a national issue at this point. Besides the point, we're talking to this client. He's probably within this age range. He's probably 75. And he's like, oh, you guys got a sweet gig set up, da-da-da. We had a business. We were doing well. We were making good money. But every year, the housing market kept getting further away from us. So even though we had a good, stable business, it just kept getting further away. And it was pissing us off. We had money saved. We were ready to go. And then by the next year, we just couldn't keep up with it. Why could we not keep up with it? Techies. I'm sorry, if you're a techie, fuck you. I'm glad you guys are getting burned because your salaries, you don't do much, you have minimal to no value, and your shit fucks everywhere it touches. It fucks Silicon Valley, it fucks San Francisco, the Bay Area, it fucked my hometown, it fucked Austin, it's fucked so many cities.
That.
And they know it because we've met them here, and they know that
hardly anything can keep up with the profit ratios of tech.
And it's not even real. It's
and their wages just outcompete.
I'm getting on a tangent. I need to go back to the whole point of this. So we told this guy, yeah, that's great that we have a business, but we can't buy. We're thinking about, we might move eventually, and probably not the best thing if you're a business owner with a warranty to be like, oh yeah, we might move. But, we were talking to this guy. What does he do? He tells his other wealthy boomer investment buddies that were thinking about going to Ohio, he goes and they buy up places in Ohio trying to front run. So the next time we go to a project at this guy's house, he tells us
6 months or 8 months later, yeah.
Oh, we got burned in Ohio. He lost money. Why would you guys want to move there? And I'm like, fucking hell yeah, I'm glad you got burned there, you piece of shit. We're telling you about a place that we might find hope, and you decide to front run us? You have no soul and no empathy. You're so greedy. You already have a multi-million-dollar home in Austin, and you're retired, and you're sitting around with your fat ass, and you're literally going, that's a great idea. Front run them. Front run these fucking kids. I hope they never get a house. I am literally like, what is so sick and wrong with you? You had your time to party in the 70s. You had your time to have kids. You had your time for your house, and you want to rob me of it? I'm telling you, I'm willing to move. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get that fucking house, that family. And you're like, front run them. This is that lady. She's like, where's the juice?
Right.
Oh, Midwest? Homes are still affordable? Let's squeeze these bitches. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Here, wait. This book. Somebody wrote about this. A generation of sociopaths. How the baby boomers betrayed America. These people are fucking evil.
This is a... How many page book here we got?
I don't know.
This
400, 500 pages?
This is a 400-page book on a generation. And that's the thing is, it's not what they talk about themselves while they're still alive. Their legacy is how we talk about them when they're gone. Do you think... I don't see any other generations predecessing. I heard about the greatest generation.
The GIs.
I heard about them. I heard about maybe our early settlers. I've heard about maybe the Gen X generation, but I haven't heard this kind of shit written about any other generation.
My point is, you got $100 million. You're 75 years old. Max, you got 10 years to live. That's your average.
It's
Ride off
despicable.
into the sunset and chill, lady. Why are you trying to squeeze your grandkids, the future?
Well, also, they are the wealthiest generation America has ever seen.
I know.
And it's the first time, actually, preceding generations are not as wealthy as theirs.
As their parents.
As their parents.
Sorry, we got a little riled up at the end, but I'm like, this lady, to me, is your peak epitome, self-absorbed. She lives in this little
High
tiny,
on the castle.
high on the
High on the
castle.
hog, high up in the
And she
castle.
believes... to me, she's your epitome of let them eat cake. If they can't afford anything, let them eat cake.
Yeah.
She's
the epitome of you should be having cereal for dinner.
Absolutely. And I'm like, you know what? This is another reason mainstream media needs to go, because stop interviewing her.
Yeah.
Even the poor guy interviewing
don't
is
give her
like,
coverage.
like, you suck. And I mean, we're giving her coverage by this, but I'm like, you know what?
It's not positive.
Why?
By any means. And
I'm
we do not
sorry.
agree.
I'm so happy that Trump, even if you like him or not, one thing you can admit to, if you don't like him, is he's putting young people in power positions instead of geriatric
and not super
dirtbags.
right people. These people, some of these appointments
Who
used to be
liberal
Democrats.
5 minutes ago.
Used to be full on Democratic.
Like literally, like probably not but
So,
6 months ago.
That has to speak for something.
I'm just like I don't really know what else to say. At this point, we'll just keep bashing this lady. But I think we needed to break down some of her narrative, and most of you guys probably know this. You probably already agree with this.
Yeah.
But we needed to just talk about it, because I'm like, no, there is a freaking bubble, and you live in a la land, lady.
Do not succumb. Stay strong. Look at these charts.
And if
Home
rates
prices-
drop, hold strong. You know why? They're dropping because the economy's bad, and they're going to keep dropping. That's what happened in 08. So you see that 5%? Get that 4. Get that 3.
Yeah. Get that 2.
Fuck her.
Yeah.
Why does she need 10 houses, $1 million fucking portfolio, and she's going to go squeeze them?
Right.
She says, oh, the Midwest has some juice left.
Here it is right here. Here's the clip.
This is her.
So
what
we
do
have
you
a
think?
stuck market, yes. But it's not just in the South. My gosh, the South hasn't done as well as the Midwest. The Midwest prices have gone up 7% compared to 1 year ago. That's incredible. 7% in 1 year when everybody's talking about this market being so bad. I think it's a vital market. It's got a lot more steam in it. And again, I just say I'm just waiting for that 5% number, anything with a 5%. And you're going to be moving, Neil, and I'm going to be selling your house.
All right. Stay strong. Don't buy. Stick it to these boomers.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? They have betrayed us. They betrayed all of America.
Listen to Caleb Hammer. If you are having a hard time getting your budget together, live under your means right now. It is very tough with inflation, but there are resources out there, free ones. His channel is called Financial Audit. He does a great job. There is a plethora of examples out there, and I think that some of them may pertain to your life and how it's going.
Well, and you're either going to find out that you're an idiot, or you're going to find out you're not doing as bad as you think you are. And if you find out you're an idiot, great, you can change. If you find out you're not doing as bad as you think you are, chin up.
Yeah,
but also
hell yeah.
there's still improvements to be made. Like I think we started watching it when he had only like 75 followers or something. Like he was a new little.
We have
baby.
paid off my student loans since listening to him. We have paid off our credit cards since we only put on our credit cards what we can month over just pay off.
Yeah.
And now we're chipping out on our car payment.
We have one
That's
left.
it. That's it.
We've moved.
Paid off our phones. Paid everything down.
We've got quite a bit in savings. The only reason we're not just paying off the car, and I think Caleb would agree to this, is the car payment is like 3% interest. So it's like we're gonna just try to knock it off, like, but
2.7.
yeah, 2 points. It's
Yeah.
so low that, but still debt free is debt free. So, and it's the
true.
last thing we've got.
That's
So,
true.
and at this point, not buying a house, so might as well pay off the debt rather than
Yeah.
just keep saving. Because like, what's the freaking point anymore?
Anyway, you guys, we hope you found some value. Please leave a comment,
Stay
like,
strong.
subscribe, stay strong. Till the next one, we'll see you.
We'll meet you under the Liberty Tree.
Yep.